Hey everybody, Brandon with Flyin Miata back for yet another FM Live. And today we're going to talk about NC products. We've got a bunch of new NC stuff that we're pretty excited to launch. So we're going to talk about that. We have mechanical things, we have interior things, we have exterior things, and we have make your lives easier things. So now, as always, if you have questions, drop them in the comments. We will try to get to them live. If not, we'll get to them after the fact. And also, if you don't like vertical videos, have no fear. 4K horizontal video tomorrow. Now, we have a bunch of parts. We've been busy working on NC things. Obviously, the NC Turbo on this car as well. But we wanted to have some things to complement that. So, first thing is a gauge pod. Now, you don't have to have a boost gauge or a wideband gauge with the NC Turbo kit because that is all basically taken care of in the tuning software, is the really short version. But a lot of people like that, and we have the Banks iDash that works very, very, very well on these cars and the NDs for that matter. And there's a new version, better resolution, faster processor, all that fun stuff. So we wanted to make a gauge pod to mount the pod in the car, mount the gauge in the car in a easy, discreet, very visible, but not ostentatious kind of place. So we have this. Now, this guy is deep enough for if you have a mechanical gauge. It has an opening in the back there for, like, the iDash has some wires coming out of it, so that all fits through there nicely. And it mounts to the defrost gauge, or the defrost vent to the left of the instrument cluster. So we do it very simply. There are two nubs here. They grab the front of, or I guess the back of one of those vanes in the vent, and we have this hook in the back. So you slip it into place, you pull the bolt up, you tighten it down, and there you go. That's it. Super easy, very easily reversible install. We also, there's a lot of detail stuff in here, like these little ribs here, so that it works with a variety of different gauges. Now, it is for the standard 52 millimeter 2 and 1/16 gauge, but sometimes they're just a hair bigger, sometimes they're a hair smaller. So these ribs really help us make sure we get a good press fit. You don't need any hardware, but they stay in place. So we'll show you where that is in the car. Now, it's right here. So it mounts, again, to this defrost vent right here. You can see you still maintain the functionality of that, and the angle is perfect to look at it. So it's not in your line of sight when you're looking at the street, but it is very, very easy to see in your peripheral vision, just like your stock gauges. So that one we're very happy about. So moving on to some mechanical things. Now, we have been selling the Paco Eccentric locks for a really long time for the NA and the NB, and now we have them for the NC and the RX-8, for what that's worth, as well. So these, basically why you need an eccentric lock. For a street car, you probably don't. For a track car, the eccentrics can have a tendency to slip, and when they slip, your alignment changes, and now your car's not driving as it should. You have to go back to the alignment shop. It's kind of annoying. So for track cars, hammering over curbs, that kind of thing, that is a fairly common occurrence, and these lock those into place. So your stock alignment bolt goes through there, and you can see it has the ribs right there to basically engage with the bolt. It has the perfect shape for the factory bolt. And then it has these teeth on this guy that correspond with these teeth on this other piece. And there's a piece on your subframe that goes around it to hold this in place. So when we put it together, those teeth keep it from slipping. It can't slip. So you can have a bunch of different positions for it. Also, if you flip it around, and usually you'd flip this one, but either way, if you flip it around, you basically get half of that difference there. So it increases your resolution for the degrees, basically there. So now with these, make sure that you don't put them on when you take your car to the alignment shop. They will call you names. It definitely makes it difficult to do an alignment. You want to align the car, 100% stock bolts, just do it. And then once it's done, mark where everything is and then install these with everything in that exact same position. So these are for holding your alignment in place after the fact. After you actually do an alignment, it's not for while you're doing an alignment. Now, the NC has different size eccentric bolts in the suspension. So there is an M14 and there is an M12. So they're basically the same thing, but if I hold them up next to each other, you can probably see that they are different diameters, the bolt size in there. Now, the smaller guy for the M12 is for the front of the rear control arms. And the big one, which is the one that carries most of the load, is for the front of the front lower control arms, as well as the rear of the rear lower control arms. Okay, flywheels. We're kind of all over the place here. These parts are all related in that they go on an NC, and that's about it. So flywheels. Now, we have been selling a light flywheel for the NC for a long time. We sell light flywheels for all Miatas because we really like them. Now, why do you want a light flywheel? A light flywheel is really the short version. It's going to make it feel more like a sports car. So the engine is revier. There's less inertia for the engine to start spinning. So it revs up faster. It's easier to rev match if you're heel toe downshifting, that kind of thing. It also improves your engine braking because there's less inertia here, so the engine slowing down and the compression on the engine is going to have a greater effect on the wheels and therefore on the slowing down of the vehicle. That said, there is such a thing as too light of a flywheel, and that is a bit of a subjective thing. However, we have been selling a 8.5 pound flywheel for a long time for the NC, and it is very good from a performance standpoint. It's great for rev matching and that type of thing. It's a little bit on the noisy side. So that is the drawback with a light flywheel, is that on closed throttle decel, it's going to have a bit of a rattle noise from the transmission. The 8.5 pound flywheel that we have been selling for a long time, that's certainly there. That's fine for some people, but not for others. This 12.5 pound version does not have that noise. You know, it might be a little bit worse than stock, but it's extremely subtle, but it does still have most of the performance advantages. So really, short version, if it's a dedicated track car, the 8.5 pound flywheel will be the better option for you. If it's kind of anything else, the 12.5 pound is going to be a better option for you there. Okay, so let's move back to things we can look at on the car, and we have our Morimoto LED fog lights. So these are direct replacements for the stock fog lights. They bolt right into the stock location using the stock mounting points, and they are quite a bit brighter than stock. We don't know the exact light output stock. I believe best case is something around 1,000 lumens. These are 1,200 a piece. They are a pure white, so it's a 5500K if you're familiar with the scale there. But it's a pure white. It's not a yellow white color. Also, these have a sharp cutoff. So they are still fog lights, but they have a sharp cutoff, which means that you can drive around with these lights on, as opposed to the stock fog lights that are kind of the pattern of the stock fog light is something closer to a high beam. Now, it doesn't throw as far as a high beam. It's not as bright as a high beam, but it doesn't have a cutoff to keep you from blinding drivers, oncoming drivers. It's more kind of up here. So the stock fog lights could blind oncoming drivers, whereas these guys won't. Now, install is very simple, but there are some things to bear in mind. So there's a plastic case here, basically the mounting location that you mount these into. Now, these have this big heat sink on the back to keep the LEDs healthy, which is good. We want that, of course. It does interfere with the housing with a stock location just a little bit, so you do have to kind of clearance that plastic a little bit. Pretty easy to do. A rotary grinding tool, Dremel, something like that, is going to be the easiest way to do it. Against plastics, pretty simple, but it does need to be done. Also, you need to connect the wires. Now, this is the proper plug for the stock car, so you just plug it in, but you do need to put the terminals into here. Now, the instructions are very clear on everything you have to do, and you have to make sure that you get the right wire on the right size, that kind of thing, but very simple install. Now, we've got them on this car, so you can see them right here. They fit in, they're kind of discreet because they're not ostentatious, you know, which is kind of redundant, I suppose. But they don't look big and obvious. They just work really, really well. They fit in just like the stock ones. They fit into the stock housing here nicely. They just have a much better light, a much brighter light, and better output, and much more white as well. So we are a big fan of those guys. Okay, and then one last thing. This one I've already done a video on just this, but I wanted to plug it real quickly since we're doing all the NC stuff. This is our NC oil drain mess saver. So for anyone who has an NC, doing an oil change is really messy because the oil filter pours all over the subframe, makes a mess. Great for rust proofing. Otherwise, kind of annoying. This permanently installs in the subframe, just a nut and bolt right here, and it directs all the oil down into your drain pan so you don't make a mess of the undercarriage of a car. So those, these are currently out of stock. We're working really hard to print them as quickly as possible. We did a lot of them to start off with and then sold out basically immediately. So this was a needed solution apparently. Okay, and without getting into specifics, I will tell you that we have a bunch of other bigger NC products in the pipeline right now that we're really excited about. So we'll be making progress on those. It'll be a little while, still early days. Please don't ask for an ETA on these mythical products, but we are working on more NC stuff. Okay, so that is my spiel. What kind of questions do we have? Very little. Okay. So again, if you have questions, drop them in the comments. We will try to get to them live. Otherwise, we'll get to them after the fact. I do have a list of questions ahead of time here, so you have some time to get your questions in. Okay, can the new gauge pod mount anywhere or only on that vent? You know, double-sided tape and some zip ties will solve all sorts of problems. That said, no, realistically, it'll only mount on that defrost vent. That is what it's intended for, and that's definitely the best place for it. You're free to modify it however you like. It does have a flat surface here, so you could stick it wherever if you cut those nubs off, but no, that's not the intention. And the intention is for it to mount right there. How does the gauge pod install? Again, these pieces right here. So basically, we give you a length for this, so you don't have to, so you have to tighten it down in place as little as possible, but you orient this like that, you slip it down into the vanes on the vent, and then you spin this around so that that hook is going to engage with the vent. You pull up on this bolt, so you kind of hold it by hand a little bit, and then you tighten it down. And then as the bolt goes down, you tighten it, or you lose your grip on it, and that's kind of that. Do pay attention to the instructions on this. You don't want to over tighten it because you could damage maybe this, but more likely the vane in the vent. It's plenty strong. It's good for this. There are no concerns, and if you kind of go meathead on it, you could damage that. So anyway, pay attention to that. How many eccentric locks do I really need? That is a good question. So, and it's going to be a bit situational. The safest thing, of course, is to replace all of them. That said, you may not need to replace all of them. So if you want to step your way into it, I would start with the front of the car, front of the front lower control arms bolts, because those are going to carry the majority of the cornering load kind of in general, and they're the most likely to have a shock load in particular. So if you want to baby step your way there, do that, and then see if any of the other ones slip. If you just, you know what, I just don't want to worry about it, one and done, and I don't have any problems, then just do them all. Might be overkill, but you just won't have to worry about them at all. Okay, I've heard eccentric locks limit your alignment and some alignment shops won't adjust them. Is that true? So yeah, it is literally true. As I mentioned, alignment shops will probably call you names if you go in with these on your car to start off with. Go in with the stock cams, with the stock bolts, everything 100% stock. They can adjust it easily, and then either ask them to, or you can do it after the fact yourself, install these. Now, that having been said, because of the teeth here, there is a limited amount of resolution. So if I want, I'm going to try to keep this as lined up as possible. So say my cam is right there and I can't install that. If I flip this around, yeah, this is, you're just going to have to use your imagination on this. Now it fits. Basically, the distance, the degree difference between this peak and that peak is effectively halved when you flip this over. That said, there is still a distance. So you cannot get absolutely any alignment that you want, because instead of anything between A and B, it's anything within A and B at X degree, or fraction of a degree increments, and I don't recall what that is offhand. So when you go to put these in, you might have to tweak it just a hair. It shouldn't be enough to matter, but if you need absolute 100% precision, these won't work. If you need 98% precision, these will be just fine, and I am not a good enough driver personally to notice 100% versus 98%. So there you go. Are the LED fog lights brighter than stock? Yes. Now, we haven't done a lot of testing with the stock fog lights. They're not tremendously effective, so we don't really use them that often usually. But yes, these do work very well, and from what we can gather and research and so on, they are roughly at least 20% brighter than stock. There's a lot of subjectivity in that, kind of, sort of. So anyway, yes, they're brighter than stock. Do the fog lights come with the bumper housings? So by bumper housings, I assume you're talking about this black plastic piece right here. No, it does not. That's a stock piece. We have no need to replace that. And by it not coming with that, it does allow it to work with all three sub-generations of the NC, which I forgot to mention, so apologies. But it does not come with those bumper housings. Next question I just answered, what generations? Yeah, it does work with all NCs. NC 1, 2, and 3, even though they did have a different front fascia, these fog lights do work with all of those. The picture shows separate plugs. Yep. So this and that, install this per the instructions, and you're good to go. I'm not sure why they're not pre-installed, but it is a very easy thing to do, so no worries. How much wiring is involved for installation? Kind of same thing. That is your wiring. That's it. Otherwise, it's plug and play. Again, do make sure that you get the wires in the right order, on the right side. Very easy, very explicitly spelled out in the instructions, but make sure you pay attention to that and get it right. Okay, will the lightened flywheel make my car accelerate faster? Here's a fun one. If we're putting on our physics hat and paying attention to some things and not other things, yes, because there is less inertia for the engine to accelerate. The flip side of that is that it's actually worse for drag racing because there's less inertia in the flywheel itself, so it's harder to get a good launch. The real answer, in my opinion, don't buy it for acceleration purposes. Maybe it'll increase it in a perfect situation. It's going to be a very, very minor improvement in acceleration. It's going to be a major improvement in feel of the car, engagement, rev matching, engine braking, all that fun stuff. So buy it for that reason. Don't buy it to make your 0 to 60 time 0.005 seconds faster. Do we recommend this flywheel to pair with our turbo kit? Absolutely. It is a great combination with the turbo kit, and will do all of the things that I said, whether your car is turbocharged or naturally aspirated. And yes, some people, there are arguments in both directions there. Short version, yes, I have it on my turbo car. It's on this turbo car. It's on all of these turbo cars here, as well as the naturally aspirated cars, and we do really like them on the turbo cars. Will the flywheel work with any clutch or just FMs? Well, it won't work with any clutch, but it will work with any clutch designed for this car. So it is a dimensional duplicate in terms of the critical dimensions for mounting and fitment and all that kind of stuff to the stock flywheel. So yeah, if you want to use it with a stock clutch, if you want to use it with an ACT or whoever else, yeah, no problem. And one other thing that I forgot to mention, this is a single piece chromoly flywheel, so we don't have to worry about the spur gear coming off or getting damaged or anything like that. It's all one piece. This also means that it can be machined when you replace your clutch rather than having to find a new friction surface with the aluminum ones. Okay, will you be doing any boat-themed NC parts, such as carbon look Orlocks or high-performance rudders? Stay tuned. There's a month and actually a specific day that comes around once a year that might be prime for that kind of option, so stay tuned. Now, are these available now? Yes. One exception, we are working on these to print these as quickly as possible. These are made in-house out of our carbon fiber reinforced nylon. So are these. So these are not in stock currently, but we're working on it. Everything else is in stock and ready to go. So, did we get any more questions? No. No. Okay. Well, there you go. So, one last thing. Next week, Miatas at the Gap. If you were anywhere in the country, but especially in the Southeast, definitely come out. Awesome event. Tons of people, vendors, friends, awesome roads, awesome cars. It is a lot of fun, and we will be there with most of the cars that you see in this picture, I think. So, we'll be there. We'll have a whole big display. I hope to see you there. Now, as always, if you like this kind of stuff, throw us a like, let us know. If you want to see more of it, subscribe. If you have ideas for other topics, drop them in the comments. If you learned something here, or if you have ideas for other things we should make for the NC or any of the other generations, drop them in the comments. Let us know. I hope everybody enjoyed this one. We will see you next week.